There was no vision in this budget for a world where technology is changing everything that we do, and we need our education system to be firing. Schools got a 1% increase in funding. That's not even enough to pay their new power bill. So our focus is on solutions, not sugar hits. That's what we'll be doing in a budget that I put forward.
Welcome back, and joining me now is Winston Peters, the leader of New Zealand First. I want to start off by asking you, the budget that was delivered this week, what would you have done differently?
A whole lot of things. So to face up to the fact that New Zealanders need to hear the truth about our lack of productivity, our low wage structure, things like research and development are woeful. There is no export strategy. In fact, we're in decline against GDP. There are probably 30 things, but to focus on the things that really matter, tell them the truth of what mass immigration has cost and the huge tensions of infrastructure and all public expenditure, rather than saying stupidly it's all good for you and somehow believe that if you repeat it enough times, it will all be regarded as true. This was a breathtaking budget, really. Breathtaking in its lack of reality and in rhetoric. But as for the substance, he ended up saying today what Muldoon said in 1972. You can't get anything off them, that's the opposition parties, because I spent it all. That's how modern he is.
Did he have his campaigner's hat on? Was that the problem? And hasn't he delivered a budget that will be easy to campaign on for his MPs?
I'm glad you said that. The last time he was out in the campaign was in Northern, where he made countless infrastructural claims, none of which have been fulfilled. Not the superhighway, not the cell tower coverage, not one of the bridges, not one meter, everything's been built, and he's now doing it again. So with the greatest respect to all of you, he is not going to be a successful campaign manager in 2017.
Is this a sugar hit budget, as Labour and the Greens called it, and will people be able to see through that, do you think?
Well, look, why don't we look at what's wrong here? First of all, if you're looking about the size of our economy, as we should have with our resources, with research and development and smart tax policies to add value and compete with Australia, which is taking its corporate tax down at 25, and we're staying around static with no idea where we're going to go now, it was a seriously bad budget. I'm not worrying about all the inducements and the lollies and things like that. They're a recognition of economic failure, that people aren't earning enough, that they can't...
We're subsidising wages and rent effectively, aren't we?
Well, that's right. But, people forget that was when Rogernomics came in '84, as it started to fail, that's when support for families started to go through the roof and dragging people in to hide the consequences. But if they were on decent wages, if things were affordable, if we didn't have, for example, a housing crisis which says to students at university today, you're going to pay 3 times as much as your parents did for a house. It's all these things that it seeks to disguise. Now, I do agree with the last two people on your program with respect to one thing. I see a lot of New Zealanders gravely concerned who are what I call wealthy and middle class and comfortable. And they begin to see the ramifications for their children and grandchildren, and they are deeply disquieted. And then out in provincial, regional New Zealand, they know one thing with this budget: there's nothing for them at all.
So if you were to become Finance Minister, what would be your first priority? Would it be around immigration and rebalancing?
The first thing is you cannot... Which country in the world is going ahead with mass immigration of the level we've got and mass immigration of low-skilled people? I'm not knocking these people. I can understand why they want to come to New Zealand. Half the world's a hellhole. But most of them are economic refugees. And when you have that sort of structure where you've not got productivity as a consequence, because you haven't got...
The government has made changes around that,
let me finish. Look, Switzerland, Norway, all these countries take top quality immigrants. And that's what's critical. But we're taking the wrong end of far too many. All of whom need a house. And guess what their solution is now to that crisis? Well, we'll bring in some more to build houses. Now, frankly, the National Party's statement on housing was appalling. They are not going to do the job. They've got no idea, unless they intend to claim half the parks in Auckland like Point England and start building on that. So all in all, I'm using my experience now, and I think it's a disastrous budget for National, and it has overtones of racism and...
In what way racism?
Well, they've got a special program for Maori. The last outing, the last 2 budgets for Maori housing, with all those millions, guess how many houses they built? 11. At $2,800,000 a year for each house. not in Paratai Drive, Remuera, no, somewhere around New Zealand. It's this gross waste of what I call the Maori Brown Table in the name of Maori who are suffering all over this country.
The government has made changes to immigration, though obviously doesn't go far enough as far as you're concerned. And do you think that would change things dramatically?
I can't believe you're asking Winston Peters of New Zealand First that question.
Why not?
After all these years, the warnings that we have given to you have come to fruition, and you ask me that question. They've made countless changes. They made changes last October. They've made tweaks and changes every year for the last 8, 9 years. And none of them were designed to have the effect of cutting back mass immigration, because this government's economic policy, and sadly the last one as well, because Helen Clark was bringing in 50,000 net when the Australians were taking 80,000 net.
Now 70,000.
No, 72,000 net now, and no chance of turning that back with all these tweaks. Their whole economic premise is predicated on mass immigration. This is a drug they can't get off. For the umpteenth time, for TV1's sake in this campaign that's coming, just tell the people the truth.
What's your number one message to people looking at this budget? What would you like to remind them of if they're watching this morning?
I'd like to remind them of the countless pages and the rhetoric that's behind something that you don't get until 10 months' time. In short, he's standing there saying, you only get this if we win the election. And I think tens of hundreds of thousands of people are going to be changing their vote on this for a whole lot of reasons. The big issues in this campaign that are coming are not in this budget.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.